used this ALCAT test for many years in my practice, and I was looking for a way that I could find some kind of foundation that would give me optimum results when I was writing a nutritional program. And in writing a program, I was always looking for something that would first benefit the client and then give them some quick results, because I feel if they find quick results, they stay a lot more compliant, and then we can go forward to helping them to completely heal. So in the first place, when I have a very systematic way that I take someone through the test and help them to understand the value of the test that they're going to have. And usually by the time someone comes into my office, they've seen a lot of other practitioners, and they're pretty desperate. And so I talk to them, first of all, about all the symptoms that they might have. I talk to them about their health issues, and I really create a relationship with the client. And I tell them that the two things that I want to focus on most is to heal the gut and to also improve their liver function, because I firmly believe that 95% of most problems people have are addressed through these two things. And I talk to them a lot about inflammation, because if they come in and they are diabetic or if they have cardiovascular disease, I talk about how that is a disease of inflammation. And then when, if they have some other things like gut issues or pain or migraines, infertility or skin issues, or they're having lots of flare-ups with autoimmune, I explain how that also relates to inflammation. And then what I relate to them is that, that the gut integrity, the main cause for the gut to become so compromised is inflammation, and that can come from several different things. Some of the things that I talk about is the medication they might be on or the use of over-the-counter drugs. I will talk to them about overuse of coffee, alcohol, if they smoke, and explain where dysbiosis can create inflammation, where the toxins that are created from yeast and things like that can also compromise the gut. I talk to them about stress. Most people have stress in their life, and I talk about the cortisol relationship to inflammation in the gut. And the very final thing that I come to is talking to them about food and that causing inflammation. I talk to them about the fact that they put food in their body like 5 times a day. And so obviously food is going to be a big component that if we can figure out the right foods for them, we're going to be able to decrease a lot of the inflammation that they might have. One of the most important things I think that a practitioner needs to understand, and also to help the client to understand, is the fact that they could have a leaky gut and how this is going to relate to food sensitivities and inflammation. And I think that these two pictures that you see up here, these side-by-side slides, will help you to see a little bit more of how leaky gut actually affects the villi. When a person becomes inflamed, or if they have taken over-the-counter drugs, or if they have dysbiosis or whatever, it's going to change the villi. On the right-hand side, the villi are healthy. They are a closed system. They're very close together, and this is representing a very healthy gut. So when somebody eats a food or has a protein that's being broken down, the protein is going to break down completely, and those villi are going to absorb the nutrients. Where on the left-hand side, all the different conditions that we talked about are going to cause the villi to atrophy. And what happens then is that you can see that there are large spaces now between the villi, and the system is no longer closed. So when a food protein comes into place and it starts to digest, before it's completely digested, a part of that protein is going to fall down in between that villi, and it's going to reach the mucosal lining of the gut. And that is where 85% of the immune system actually is, in this gut area. And that immune system immediately starts to respond to this undigested food protein in just the same way that it would respond like to a virus or anything else, and it starts to create antibodies. So my goal is, that I tell the client, is that I want to heal the gut and get them back so that their villi are looking like the picture in the healthy gut. And so I look at their lifestyle. I talk a little bit about that, maybe where they may have, overabundance of, coffees or lattes or alcohol or whatever. Talk about maybe their stress. But then I explain to them how the ALCAT test itself is going to actually help us to determine what foods are creating that leaky gut. And what I do with them is I explain how that we're going to take their blood and we're going to send that back to the lab, and that they're going to test it, and they're going to, watch the white blood cells, how they change. They're going to watch for the cytokines, and they're going to monitor that. And those are all the inflammatory markers that are coming off from them ingesting these different foods. And that's going to show us which foods are causing the most inflammation. And I then explain to them that we are not looking at food allergies, because a lot of people are confused by that. And I talk to them about the food allergies being things that create immediate responses like hives or, maybe even difficulty in breathing or that sort of thing. And I talk about the fact that we're going to detect the food sensitivities. And I explain to them that a food sensitivity may be something that they eat, but they may not have a reaction for at least as far as 72 hours from the time that they ingest that, so that they understand that this isn't something immediate, but something that we really have to do some detective work about. The next thing I do is that I actually show them a copy of a test, and I want to tell them that they are going to be removing all the foods that are going to come out in the yellow area for 3 months, and that they're going to remove all the foods in the red and orange for 6 months. And I actually, when I'm looking at their test, I judge the gut integrity by the number of foods that they have. If they have a large amount of foods, I assume that they've probably had issues with their gut for a long time and that we've got a lot of repair to do. So then I decide how many different supportive supplements, things that I might bring in that I'm going to heal the gut. And at that time I'm kind of deciding what program I'm going to put them on. Everybody that takes the test, regardless of what it says about gluten, is going to be off gluten for 6 months. And I really, as far as the test goes, even dairy, I take everyone off of dairy for 6 months as well. I place everyone on a basic Candida diet, no matter what this test tells me. I look at this as just a reaction to what is happening to the toxins in the body from Candida, not really meaning whether they have an overgrowth of Candida in their body. So usually people that are coming to me have large lists of food sensitivities, which I assume most likely have low hydrochloric acid and probably have an overgrowth of some kind of yeast or bacteria in the gut. So I treat it as such, even though it may not indicate it on the test. So I cut back their fruits, I take away their sugars and a lot of their starchy carbohydrates, and just kind of basically address the Candida that way. Why do I take everyone off gluten? What I have found in years and years of using this test is that, being that the immune system is in the small intestine, and that is where the antibody responses are building up, that sometimes I feel that the antibodies haven't built up strongly enough that they are being picked up in the blood, because I've actually had people that did not test positive for gluten or gliadin and then on the test, but yet actually when we went to further testing with doing some stool testing and enteral lab testing, found out that they carried celiac gene and actually had celiac disease. So that's really something I think you need to take into consideration when you're looking at this test. And if there is a category that I see that's very short, say for instance in the meat category, I like my clients to use a fair amount of protein in their diets to balance blood sugars. And if I see that the meat in the diet is limited, maybe they only came up that they can have turkey, but in their yellow list they have pork and they have chicken, what I will do is I will put this into a rotation, and every 4th day I will bring those particular foods in, because I want to make sure that they have enough protein to balance out what their needs are. Of course, we're looking for symptoms when we bring that in to make sure that that's not something that they're going to react to. But I will at that time take that, and they won't be off of that particular food for 3 months. When I'm working with a client, I remove all sugar, all coffee, all tea, and alcohol for the first 3 months, because I don't feel that you can heal the gut fast enough if you're going to allow all these acidic foods. So I really don't care what the test says. I take them off of those foods anyway. The faster I can heal the gut, the more compliant the client's going to be, because they want to get back to adding the foods back in. And I share with them in the beginning that if they're compliant and they work with me in the first 3 months, that we will probably, throughout our program, be able to probably bring back at least 95% of the foods that are listed. And that's usually the case. So as a nutritionist, I also, don't just look at the food program, but I also work with them on their eating habits, how to chew their food, how to digest better, and really important, how to balance their blood sugar. So that's not what we're addressing today, but I add all of that into the program when I'm talking to them about healing. They're going to be working on this program between 3 and 6 months, and I'm very upfront with them right in the beginning. And then as the gut starts to heal and I can see that their symptoms are going down, I start to add the foods back in one at a time. And I have a very strict way of doing that. I bring in one food every 4th day, and I have a list of reactions that they may have, and I give them that list of reactions to look for. And if they don't have any reactions, then they can add a new food in on the 4th day, and then if they do have a reaction, I make them stop adding foods in for at least 10 days before they try a new food. And that has seemed to work for me pretty well. The benefits of the program, I really stress to them. I build up the value of the test so that they understand, because some people will look at the cost of the test and feel that it's expensive, but usually I don't even talk about the price of the test until I have given them all the value. I talk about the fact that it's bio-individual. It's not just a diet out of a book or, what's popular on the market today. I talk about the fact that they're going to know what foods make their body function at its absolute optimum. I talk about the fact that it's a very short time to decrease inflammation, and that if they stop introducing the foods that are causing inflammation, that the body will stop producing the antibodies and will have a very quick response to their compliance. A lot of clients will come into my office and they will ask about weight loss, and I tell them that weight loss is a bonus. I never focus on weight loss. Unless somebody is just, really has really poor eating habits, I usually feel that weight gain is something going on in the body. And I explain that to them, that either there's inflammation going on, there's food sensitivities, that, there's some reason that their body is gaining weight. And so we're going to focus on finding out what that is, and that they're going to have the benefit of weight loss at the end of the program. Many clients will come in with bloating and gas, and they're miserable, and they've been miserable for a long time. And I had one 28-year-old that came in, and she came in for her first follow-up, and she said, first time in 28 years, she had 11 days without pain. And so if you've ever been in that condition, you understand that these clients want fast results. And so that's why I'm so strict with everything, because they will get those results very quickly. Now, in this particular case, it was very interesting because she was having her gut issues, and she had these 11 days that she didn't have pain, and then all of a sudden the pain started coming back again. And so we had to go on another down another detective route. And what I found was I always test for aflatoxin. I find that a lot of people test positive for that. And in this particular case, she did not have a lot of nut proteins that she had tested positive for, but aflatoxin was very high. We ended up having to take all nuts out of her diet, and when we did that, we were back to absolutely no pain again in her gut. So I think that there's a lot of other things you might want to design in your test that you just have as an automatic that you put in that you're going to find are going to be tools to help you figure out problems that people are having. A lot of my clients will come in with body pain, and I explain to them that when the antigen and the antibodies come together, these little complexes, that they cause inflammation, and they will usually rest in a weak part of their body. If they have fibromyalgia, that's usually what causes a lot of muscle pain. If they have rheumatoid arthritis or other arthritis conditions, that these antigen-antibody complexes are going to be actually going into their joints and causing inflammation. And so they begin to understand the relationship of understanding what foods are going to create these complexes, and that if they remove those, that the pain is going to go away. A lot of body pain is also in people that have gluten sensitivities. And people who are born with certain genes are predisposed to gluten sensitivities, and this gluten can create the same damage in the gut as celiac, and also can create damage, and it can manifest itself in other symptoms, sometimes in the nervous system, causing neuropathy pain, and can manifest itself in nerve cells that can result in ADD, schizophrenia, and migraines, and different different things like that. So I'm very concerned about, I always focus on the gluten part as well as the other foods that I'm going to remove from their diet. When they're starting the program, as I said, I am very honest with them, and I want a client that's going to be committed to the program. If they're not showing me that they can be committed for 3 to 6 months, then I usually don't choose to work with them. I'm going to give them a lot as a nutritionist, and I want to get back a lot. And together, if we both make that commitment, I find that my program is very successful. It's going to require 3.5 months minimum of them working with me. It also requires removing all the foods that we come up with on the test. I don't let them pick and choose. They have to make a commitment that what we find on the test is what they're going to remove from their diet. They also remove, as I said before, alcohol, sugar, and coffee. And I have people that have chosen not to work with me when they understand that alcohol has to be removed for a certain period of time from the diet. I have had some people that have excessive use of alcohol, and I will wean them because they probably would not do very well if we removed it immediately. But for most part, if it's just social drinking, I ask them to remove it right as we start the program. Again, I remove all the dairy, the gluten, the sugar, again, even if it's not positive on the ALCAT test. Follow-up, I feel, is the key to the test success. My clients have scheduled follow-ups for the whole 3 months that they're working with me. I feel that they all need support. I listen for little things, like sometimes they'll come in after 6 or 8 weeks and they'll say, I'm really getting bored with this diet. That's a key. When I hear that, then I treat them to a few things on the yellow list. And I say, now what you can do is we're going to look at the yellow list and we're going to pick out a few foods and we're going to try to start adding back a few foods. And usually they feel really good about that. They pick out a few things that they're really missing, and it takes them for another 2-3 weeks enjoying the diet, enjoying being on the program. And I always, as I said in the beginning, put them on some kind of gut products because my goal is the faster that I can heal the mucosal lining of the gut, the faster that we're going to be able to bring in a lot more foods. So I put them on probiotics. I usually have them on aloe. I use L-glutamine, and then I have a couple of different companies that have gut products that I will use that are specifically targeted to heal the gut. I put all of my clients on a very mild detox. I don't believe in detoxing with heavy detox. And so they start out with a very, very mild detox, and I take them through that through the whole first month of the program. So it's very slow. So they have very mild symptoms as they're starting to detox. So that's basically how I take my clients through a program. So I wanted to go through some case studies of some things that I have found that using the program I've just described have been very successful. I work in a clinic that is 3 acupuncturists here deal with women's health, and so they work with reproductive endocrinologists. So we have people that are going through IVF, IUIs, and that sort of thing so that they can help them to get pregnant. And what I have found is that if you decrease the inflammation in the female reproductive organs, that it increases their chance of actually becoming pregnant. The case study I have here was a 35-year-old female. She had no children. She had attempted to get pregnant 2 years ago and miscarried at 9 weeks. The fetus had stopped growing at 6 weeks. And she had attempted IVF twice, and she had done IUIs several times with and without fertility drugs. And she had absolutely no other diagnosed health issues, very healthy young woman. Her menstrual cycle was irregular, and I find lots of women about the 3rd month that they've been working with the ALCAT program, the regularity of their periods improves. She had medium flow, and she had some cramping and PMS until she was age 30, and then she had a period change. The periods became much shorter, flow was lighter, her cramps eased up, and she absolutely had no libido. We did the ALCAT test, and we came back with a lot more foods than I've listed, but I just chose a few. In the severe category, you can see there was baker's yeast, oats, white potato. Moderate category was gliadin, and in the mild category was casein and wheat. And also moderately, she was reacting to rice and brewer's yeast and chicken. So she had lots of inflammation from foods that she was commonly eating. Some of the other important markers that I found is that she had a moderate amount of mold sensitivities and a moderate reaction to fluoride. I use all the information that comes back from the ALCAT test. I spend as much time on the environmental chemicals and the food additives as I do on the food, because I have found that those are directly related to a lot of the inflammation that's going on in people's body. To be really honest, I don't waste my time in doing 50 food tests. I always do the 200 food test. I encourage my clients, I don't even offer a less than a 200 food test. If they want to work with me, I tell them, don't waste your time and money. Let's just get down to the bottom of what we're looking for and get all the information that we can. So I've worked with ALCAT to design a program that works for me, and I get a lot of valuable information that I feel is very influential in helping me to design my program. This patient was 100% compliant. She was on the program for 3 months and then decided she wanted to try to get pregnant. And her first attempt to conceive was successful. She did an IUI without drugs. The pregnancy was uneventful. The pregnancy was full term, and she now has a healthy baby boy. During the pregnancy, she had no swelling, no blood pressure issues. Many women that I have worked with PCOS and some other issues during their pregnancies have found that their blood pressure stayed very normal. One client had a lot of swelling in her first pregnancy, had absolutely none after she was 6 months using the ALCAT program. Morning sickness is almost absent in most of my clients. Weight gain is minimal. Most of these women, they just gain in the baby. They do not gain weight on the rest of their body, and so weight loss is very easy after the pregnancy is over. All of the women stay on the program throughout the entire pregnancy, and many of them have just continued it afterwards, and then are really passing on a lot of the things that they learned to raising their children. In the second case study I have, this was a woman that had multiple sclerosis, and I have a lot of autoimmune clients. Once you've helped one client with autoimmune, they tell everybody about the success of the program. Inflammation increases their flare-ups in autoimmune, and you're not going to usually turn off you're not going to turn off autoimmune, but you can decrease the inflammation and you can decrease the symptoms, and that's my goal. And that's what I tell them my goal is when they first come in. This particular woman was 38 years old, and she had 2 children. She was diagnosed with MS in March of 2008. After she delivered her last child, she was blinded. And so that was the first symptom that the doctor started to test her for MS. She had neuropathy in her legs. She had pins and needles that were so painful. And she had depression, and psoriasis was over her entire body, so she had more than one autoimmune condition. Her weight was out of control, and she had severe fatigue. She actually could not get out of bed in the morning. She was unable to function as a parent, and she told me that her goal was to walk down the aisle with her daughters and not be in a wheelchair. And so the interesting thing was that this woman was very proactive. She had read every book in the library on MS. She was already on a gluten-free diet. She was already on a dairy-free diet and had been for several months and had mild improvement. When we did the ALCAT test, we got the results that you see here. She was severe reaction to baker's yeast. Cane sugar was huge for her. Corn, egg whites, goat milk, quinoa, soybeans, wheat were just a few. In the moderate category was gliadin, and she had a moderate reaction to whey, to casein, and also to chicken and pistachios and rice. This was before I was testing for aflatoxin, but I'm sure that there was probably a reaction to that as well, but we didn't have those results. She had a mild reaction to maple sugar, honey, and peanuts. And the other markers that were important for her is that she had benzene and moderate environmental marker. This woman had grown up in an agricultural area and was highly exposed to a lot of chemicals. And interestingly enough, she has other people in her family with MS that also grew up in the same area. So I have found that my autoimmune clients have a lot of flare-ups when they are exposed to some of the environmental markers that we actually test for. And so I'm very careful with all autoimmune clients to make sure that we pay a lot of attention to all the environmental chemicals and also to gluten exposure, because I find that that is one of the key things to helping their symptoms to become less. This particular client was a patient that was 100% on the program with me. She dropped 10 pounds in the first month, has dropped a lot more weight since then. She worked in 2 weeks. There absolutely was no fatigue. She was back taking her kids to school and functioning as a parent, taking part in their activities in the classroom. In 2 months, she had so much skin improvement. Her psoriasis was down to just a few little marks, and she went to her class reunion in a sleeveless dress, and that was a big accomplishment for her. She was feeling pretty. She was feeling good about herself. Her self-esteem was coming up, and there was just a major improvement with her depression and every other symptom that she had. In 3 months, after 3 months of being on the program, she was not having any MS flare-ups at all. And then we went for a while, and she called me, and she had had a flare-up, and we started going through all the different things that she had changed. Nothing was changed in food, but what had happened is she had changed a perfume, and she had had a high score on her Oris root, and so we took the perfume away, and within 3 days she was recovering from the symptoms that she was having, and we now know that we have to be very careful with her shampoos, her body washes, and anything that has perfume in it, and we have not had her flare-ups since she has been watching environmental things as well as her food program. In all my autoimmune cases, I never reintroduce gluten. There's been many studies done that show that there is a definite relationship between gluten intolerance and how many flare-ups and how progressive autoimmune diseases will become. So none of my clients, regardless of how they test, are placed back on gluten. The third case study that I want to talk about is a woman who had urticaria. She was a 32-year-old woman. She has 1 child. She had chronic hives over her entire body. She was receiving steroid injections, but they were totally unsuccessful. She was using daily antihistamines. She had extreme thirst at night. She was very fatigued. She would get up in the morning with her child, and within 2 hours she would have to go back and take a very long 2-hour nap. And this fatigue had been going on and increasing for over 2 years. She had a family history of allergies and asthma and hives, and she was starting to have very severe heart palpitations. Her allergist told her that it was going to take 1.5 years on medication to possibly clear up her skin. We did the ALCAT test, and this was very interesting. She had no gluten or gliadin sensitivities on the test. She had no reaction to casein. She had a moderate reaction to whey. She had severe food reactions to beef, millet, oysters, brewer's yeast, fructose, and shrimp, moderate reaction to chicken, chocolate, lettuce, oats, olives, and soybeans, and mild reaction to wheat. The interesting thing about this is that when we removed her from gluten, as I said I always do, and later down the road, she really wanted me to prove to her that she could not eat gluten because it was a sad thing for her not to have bread. So we went forward and did the Entero lab test and found out that she had the gene for celiac disease. She carried 2 genes for gluten sensitivity. She had casein and gluten antibodies that were very high, in very high scores. So she had to come off of all of those foods permanently. She also, another thing that we did with her is that we noticed that orris root was very severe in her markers of environmental, so we removed all perfume products from her as well. This particular patient, her fecal fat scores were low when she did the entero lab test, so we knew that she had not yet converted, most likely, and without the biopsy we didn't know for sure, but we most likely knew that she had not converted yet to celiac disease. So the fact that she had done the ALCAT test and that we had started on a track of taking the foods that she was sensitive to away, taking gluten out of her diet, hopefully maybe this will not manifest itself into an autoimmune condition of celiac. And she also now knows that she has to protect her children, because if there's a presence of a gene in a parent, then the children should not be on any kind of a gluten, have any gluten in their diet for the first 3 years. So we're being very careful with her children now to make sure that we remove gluten from their diet as well. Another client that I had that had urticaria that just emailed me today and has been 6 days without hives and has been 2 days off of all of her antihistamine, so that's really exciting news. But what we found with her is she was going along and she had about 4 days that her hives were actually decreasing, but then she took a bath in the tub the day that the housekeeper had cleaned the tub with chlorine and hadn't rinsed it well enough, and the residue from the bleach that was in the tub created all the hives again. This again is where it's so important to look at those environmental markers as well as just the food sensitivities. So use all your data that's available. She now has restricted her house from all cleaning products that could cause an environmental outbreak or an environmental reaction. And she is, as I said, 6 days without any hives, and she's pretty excited. These clients that I'm talking about, all of these clients were to some of the top-end MDs. They had gone to Stanford and UCSF. And the key that I feel that you have to work in conjunction with the allopathic physicians and to give the clients the support, because most physicians do not have the time that I'm taking to really take these people through the diet, through the program for 3.5 months, and to do the follow-ups that we do an hour at each session to really find out where they are and how they're dealing with their symptoms so that we can tweak the program a little bit to continue to work for them. So, you know, I feel that the food plan is long-term. It's going to give the client the support that they need. It's going to give them enough time that they can start to feel what optimal health feels like, and that they are going to get excited about feeling well again enough that they'll stay compliant with this program for the rest of their life. And that's my goal. So if you have some questions, I guess that's part of my presentation I wanted to present, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Are you there, Daniel?
I am here. I just had to unmute myself. Yeah, it looks like somebody just typed a question in there. 1 second. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, it was by Stephanie Story, so I'm going to unmute Stephanie so she can ask that question on her own. One moment. Stephanie, are you there? Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Appreciated your information, Willie. I wanted to know how often do you feel you need to meet with clients in the first 3 months? Is it weekly or?
Before the 3 months, I meet with them to do an intake. I actually have a class that they attend. And then I meet with them for their program. And when I go over the ALCAT results, it's a quite lengthy program. It's 2.5 hours to go through the program. And then I meet with them in 1 week after the program. Then I meet 2 weeks after that, and then I meet every 3 weeks for 3 months. Now, sometimes I have clients that may need more individual attention, and I meet with them more often. Especially with people with urticaria, because of the fact that they may have, they're still having outbreaks, and we're really trying to monitor very closely. I might have them come in every week until we start to get things calmed down. I have clients, I have one little gal who's over 300 pounds. She's a teenager, and I feel she needs more support, so I have her come in more frequently. But for most of my clients, they follow the program of 1 week, 2 weeks, and then every 3 weeks.
Okay, great. I have a couple of other questions, if I may.
As far as I'm concerned,
Okay.
yeah, sure.
Oh, for those clients.
Go ahead.
For those clients who were positive for aflatoxin and you took them off the nuts, are they ever able to eat nuts again?
What I usually do is if they have positive for aflatoxin, I look at the nuts that they can have, that the ALCAT test says that they did not have a positive result to. If peanuts or pistachios are in that, I take them off peanuts and pistachios, and we try to work with the nuts that are left, like almonds maybe or that sort of thing. We try to work with that in nut butters and nut milks and that sort of thing. If they continue to have symptoms, then I pull them off of all nuts, and I don't reintroduce any kind of nut for 6 months. And then we would follow the same protocols. We'd bring one nut in and see if they have any reaction, and it'll be their body is going to determine whether or not those nuts can come back in or not.
Okay, okay. And when you say that your clients follow this program for 3 months, you're saying no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, and none of their positive foods. Is that right?
For 3 months, they have all for 3 months, the yellow list is, the mild intolerances is where I usually take those out for 3 months. Like I said, I will vary that if they have some area that they are very short, maybe all their green vegetables, kale and chard and spinach and that sort of thing, maybe they're limited in all that. Yeah. And so for the first month to 6 weeks, I really like to stick to the program as tightly as I can. And then I might bring some of those in just because nutritionally I feel that they may need some of those foods. But I'm very careful to have them only rotate them in once every 4th day. But it really depends on where their symptoms are, how well their healing's going, how compliant they are. But as far as sugar, most of my clients, once they've been off sugar for 6 weeks, they don't want to go back on it. They realize what sugar was doing to them. And so I really, use, xylitol or stevia and that sort of thing. But I try to keep them off of sugar indefinitely.
Yeah, well,
everybody has an occasional, treat that they go out for, But most of them really don't want to return to sugar or coffee. They realize how the caffeine, how it was really controlling their fatigue. And most of the time when these clients are off of this, they're feeling so good, they don't ever want to go back to how they were feeling before.
So it's a positive reinforcement there. So do you? So then you rotate those foods that were in the green category, no reaction, during those 3 to 6 months. They're rotating those foods every 4 days.
Yes. Well, what I do is I tell my clients that they all get the list that you receive from ALCAT, but I find that if you put people into these 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 days, and then have all these foods they have to remove, I find a lot of my clients it's like it just throws them over the top. So I have, most of our clients are real intelligent people, and I talk to them about just, mentally rotating. It's like if you have broccoli on Sunday, you're not going to have it till the end of the week. And I do it a little more than so rigid as days, but, I talk to them about the importance of rotation. A lot of my clients make a large dinner and eat that same food for lunch the next day, and then they will remove that food from their diet for 4 days. And so that they still can, because there's a lot of preparation in this diet, they have to cook a lot at home. So if they overcook at one meal and eat it the next day at lunch, I find that is helps me with the success of the program. And so, but I still encourage that they separate their foods for 4 days. Now, in some cases, they're going to find that they're so limited. You will have people that end up having so many foods that they've reacted to that you have to rotate the foods a little less than 4 days in order for them to have rotation in their diet. So it's really individual, and you have to look at that as a nutritionist and make that decision.
Okay. All right.
Did that answer your question?
Stephanie, if you have any follow-up questions, we're going to try to get to those at the end. I want to go to Chastity Hester. Just give me one moment. I'm going to unmute her. One moment.
Unmuted.
I have to unmute everybody, unfortunately. Chastity, if you could go ahead and
Sure.
start.
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. A couple questions. The difference in gluten and the gliadin, and then also what products you use to heal the gut specifically, and do you use hydrochloric acid?
First of all, gliadin is another protein, and how I explain to my clients is that, let's take wheat for example. You're going to have wheat protein, you're going to have gliadin, you're going to have gluten. It's all within the wheat shaft, okay? You can't separate those proteins. You know, it's all it's all a component. So gliadin is like a part of the gluten protein. And then as far as healing the gut, I use aloe. I find that is a very good product to help heal the gut very quickly. It's very soothing to people that have gut issues. Use L-glutamine. All of my clients are on L-glutamine in the beginning to help the gut integrity. Probiotics are another thing that I use for gut healing. And then I use I assume it's okay to mention product companies. I use Apex and I use Designs for Health, and both of them carry different products that can help with gut integrity, either through their medical foods that I use for protein shakes, or for specific products like GI Revive with Designs for Health.
Digestive enzymes also?
It depends. I don't put everybody on digestive enzymes. I don't put everybody on hydrochloric acid. I believe that I want to see what the diet will do. And I put everyone on the diet. I get them going for a couple of weeks, and then I start evaluating symptoms. I am slow to move. I let my clients know I'm slow to move, and if they want somebody fast, there's lots of people in the phone book that'll give them 500 supplements, and that's how they can try to heal. I feel if the gut is healing, that you're going to start seeing that the symptoms decrease, and you're going to be able to judge whether they need some HCl. I also run full panels of blood work, chem panels and, CBC and all that. So I can actually see, if their protein levels are high. I can see if they're digesting protein and can judge by that whether or not they may need some additional HCl with their meals or whatever. And I look at symptoms. If in 3 weeks they're still gassy and bloating, they're obviously not digesting, then I start to add on some of those other products. But I usually give the diet some time, and you'll be surprised that probably 80–90% of your clients don't need all that extra supplement.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Looks like Bonnie has the next question. Just hold on one moment.
Unmuted.
Bonnie, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Daniel, she's very, there's a lot of echo.
I'll go ahead and read the question, and then I'll continue to mute everyone. Hold on a moment. So the question from Bonnie was, what do you use for a detox product? Hold on one second, Willie. Let me unmute you real quick. All right, Willie, can you go ahead?
Yes. When I start my clients out, and if someone is really, really sick, having a lot of fatigue and symptoms, I might hold off, and especially with autoimmune conditions, especially if they have like IBS or Crohn's, sometimes I hold off doing detox for a while and let the body start to heal a little bit first because they're not in any condition to actually deal with a detox. But I usually use amino acids. I use a lot of Designs for Health products, and I will use amino acids to start the phase 2 for detoxing that. I move very, very slowly, very carefully, and let them detox to whatever level they can. Some people can, I can only start them out with 1 or 2 caps of an amino detox a day. Sometimes they can start out with, 3 in a day, moving up to 2-3 times a day, and I use that through the first month. If the ALCAT test allows, and they can have lemon and lime, I have them start the morning out with, lemon and hot water before they have any food, so they can mildly detox that way. And then I move over to different medical foods, either Paleo Cleanse or Clearvite, which are products from Apex and Designs for Health, and start working on detoxing that way. If people have an estrogen issue, I might use Methyl SP, which is an Apex product. It just really depends if they seem to have gallbladder problems. There's a liver gallbladder product, it's Designed for Health, and there's also a Biomin, which is a gallbladder product that I use, liver gallbladder product from Apex. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Daniel, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I had myself muted. We're going to get to the next question from Nelsa. Nelsa, do you want to go ahead and ask that question?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Willie, very much for all this information. I'm thinking of a particular patient who took herself off wheat and felt better. And on the ALCAT test, she did come up with a wheat sensitivity. I think it was in the yellow. It was mild or that moderate. But it was, but she was negative for the Gluten. So that was confusing to both of us.
Do you want me to explain more about that?
Yes, if you could clarify that.
This is, for me, it took a while using the test to understand that, and that's where I came to the conclusion that every client I work with comes off gluten. There's not an option. If they don't want to do that, then they don't work with me because this is where, when I started using other lab testing, because people had, we were testing to find out if they were genetically predisposed. And we found out that, that they would have high sensitivities. You have to remember that the way I understand it, and this is very basic for me, and I'm sure that there's very in-depth ways of understanding it, but that the immune system being, 85% of the immune system being in the gut area, in the small intestine area, that you're going to, that's where the antibodies are created. So you're actually going to detect these things in stool. Unfortunately, the stool test, they give you like soy, eggs, and gluten. So it's not enough. It's not enough but the ALCAT test gives you so much more that I'd rather do the ALCAT test and just take them off of gluten. But what happens is as these antibodies build up, that the small intestine is producing these antibodies, eventually the body builds up enough antibodies that you start detecting it in the blood. And so where, she had the wheat and the mild, that is a separate protein. The ALCAT is testing for the wheat protein, the gluten protein, and the gliadin protein. Those are all different proteins, and maybe she didn't yet mount enough response where they were picking it up in the blood test, but yet they had picked up the wheat protein that she was reacting to. But, if she were to do, a stool test, you may have seen that there were antibodies that were at higher levels in the small intestine, and they just maybe had not raised, the response had not come up high enough where they were being picked up yet in the test. That's my answer to it, and that could be, that's how I understand it. And so so therefore, everybody comes off gluten if they feel better. I had a woman call today. She wants to repeat the ALCAT test, And she said to me, she said the first time she took it, there was no gluten. I've had her off gluten, and every time she goes back to eating gluten, she can't go to the bathroom. And I said, how much proof do you need? You know, how much money do you want to spend on tests? Your body is telling you it doesn't tolerate gluten. She's going to go back and retest, which is fine. But I told her, I said, you know, I can do lots of tests and we can spend lots of money. But if your body's telling you it doesn't react to something, or does react to something, then, you know, you have the answer right there. Why do you want to go back to not feeling well? And, you know, kind of the proof's in the pudding. So, does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, the next question is by Sanoviv, and I apologize, I don't know. Arturo. Yeah, Moctezuma. So I'm going to unmute him just one moment. Looks like your audio pin is not typed in, so if you could go ahead and do that, I'll read your question, and then just type in that audio pin for me, and then you can ask a question. But the question was, are xylitol and erythritol okay on an anti-candida diet? So, Willie?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, because they do not feed candida. And so at least xylitol. I'm not sure about erythritol. I'd have to look that up. It is an alcohol sugar. Usually, but xylitol for sure does not. And I use xylitol for those patients that can tolerate xylitol. Being an alcohol sugar, sometimes it can cause some bowel disturbance if they overuse it. Some people cannot use it at all. So I always have my clients test xylitol with a very small amount first and see how much they can tolerate. But as far as candida, it does not, it's one of the advantages of it, it does not feed the candida.
The next part was, what about gliadin contamination in McCann's steel cut oats?
All of my clients are on wheat-free oats. First of all, if oats are listed in their mild, moderate, or severe, then they're off oats altogether for 6 months. If they are listed down in the blue section where the gluten gliadin is, then I tell them that we will add in oats. I actually, for the first month or so, take everybody off of all their the different grains except for rice, unless rice obviously was positive. I just kind of want the body to kind of calm down on the whole grain issue. And so then I reintroduce oats, and when I do, I have them go to Bob's Red Mill, or there's different ones on the market that are gluten-free, because oats are grown within wheat fields and therefore are contaminated. And so I do allow them to have oats, but they have to be gluten-free oats.
So have you experienced patients reacting to those from Ireland, the steel cuts, like McCann?
I haven't specifically had them use that particular product. Most of my clients use the Bob's Red Mill, so I really can't give you any, indication. But if I remember correctly, in a class that I took on gluten, is that the McCann are gluten-free.
Thanks.
Great. The next question is for Chastity Hester. Give me one moment. Chastity, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
She already answered it. I asked it earlier.
Okay, cool. All right, one moment. And then looks like, give me 1 second. We'll get to this next question here. Next question is from Kathy Robinson. And then what about wheat protein and shampoo? So let me unmute you, Kathy. Kathy, you can go ahead there.
Thank you. Willie, I was wondering that you talked about shampoos and body gels and taking people off of them because of different sensitivities. What about if someone has a gluten sensitivity but not a wheat sensitivity, and they're using a shampoo that has a wheat protein in it?
I try to get my clients who have wheat sensitivities off of all wheat products. And I have a person that I have found in my town that is dealing with cosmetics that are wheat-free, and I usually just send them over there. I have another place that has makeup, like eyeliner and things like that, that are all natural, and so I send them there. If they have children, make sure that Play-Doh, all those kinds of products that they check to see if there's any wheat in them. Especially people have urticaria or any kind of rosacea. I'm very careful what they use on their, as far as foundation makeup for women on their skin, because I believe that you absorb it through the skin. Now, obviously, celiac, they have to be, very careful. Some of my clients with just gluten sensitivities, they don't want to go into all that, and so they aren't as careful. But I have found that anyone with skin conditions of any kind, and people who have a lot of fatigue, that definitely there is a relationship to what they use on their skin and the reactions that they have and how well they feel.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
If a person tests moderate for chlorine, should they avoid swimming in chlorinated water?
That's so hard. When people test positive for chlorine, one of the things I do is I make sure that they get a shower head. And I don't know where you live. We have Home Depot out here, and there's shower heads that can take the chlorine out, because you absorb actually more chlorine through your water than you do through drinking. I emphasize that they, definitely try to either put a filter system in or to buy, water that comes from a company that's, that doesn't have chlorine in it. But as far as swimming, I recommend that they get the chlorine off their skin as fast as they can when they get out. I have had people that react so violently that they don't get into chlorine, particularly that one woman I just told you about. It was just a minor amount of Clorox that was left in her bathtub. She will not be swimming. But I think it has to be done on an individual basis. But for most clients, they do swim some, but I really encourage them to not just hose off or, just get into a shower, but to really scrub their skin, try to get as much of the chlorine off as they can.
Thank you. One other quick thing. Xylitol is made from either birch bark or corn husk.
Mm-hmm.
What about if it is made of corn husks? I don't know how to tell the difference, and someone has tested moderate sensitivity for corn.
Okay. Again, that's another thing that I take I didn't mention this. I take everyone off corn for 2 months, because I have found that many of my clients, that when we reintroduce corn, they have a reaction even if it was in the green. So therefore, I remove corn, and I do not use xylitol that's made from corn. I think I use a product from Designs for Health. They have xylitol from birch, and it is a little expensive, but a little bit goes a long way. And so I do not encourage any xylitol that is made out of anything other than the birch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like Douglas has a question. Douglas, if you want to go ahead, please go for it.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I have a question concerning the patient with MS. Do you know the stage that this patient was in?
She had been diagnosed. She had, I think, something like 9 lesions that were, and so she had, they do not know how long, of course, she had had the MS, but that's where she had 9 lesions. She's going to be retested here. She's going to have an MRI very shortly, and then I will be able to give you more of an update of, have we actually been able to improve the lesions and has she had an advancement of lesions. But at this point, we don't know.
Douglas, I had to mute you real quick just because you were giving a big echo. Do you have any follow-up questions?
I'm sorry?
I had to mute you because you were echoing a little bit. Do you have any follow-up?
Let me turn my volume down here. Is that better?
Oh, much better. Thank you. Oh, much better. Thank
okay. My question is, do you know if the lesions were active or inactive?
I didn't hear you. You went away.
Are the lesions that they found, are they active or inactive?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, to be honest.
Okay, let me ask another question. Do you know of any studies that demonstrate when an individual is put on this particular diet that fits them, according to the test, that it can decrease autoreactive T cells?
There is, I know that Detox Karazian, who is, works with Apex, he has done a lot of research in that area. So I would actually look up some of his work. And I also, Tom O'Brien has done a lot of work with gluten and how it affects the immune system. So those are two people that I would, you can Google and look up some of their work, and I think that you might find some of the answers you're looking for.
Great, thank you. Looks like Colleen Hartford had the next question, and she wanted to know if there was a way to see the slides after the presentation. I will be posting these on the website, ALCAT.com, in the Practitioner Services login section. So we will have those on there. They'll be in a PDF format. We will also have the recording of this webinar on the website. So it's ALCAT.com in the Practitioner Services login area. And then Colleen also had a question about the gluten-free oats. Let me just unmute her real quick. Oh, I don't know if I can. Colleen, if you could type in your audio pin. I'm sending it to you right now, and then you can communicate. But Willie, do you know what the name of those oats were?
The oats that I use are, I use Bob's Red Mill. They have a catalog of a lot of different gluten-free things, and I use their product. And then there was McCann, that the person who called in had said those are some oats from Ireland, and I believe that those are gluten-free as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me check the next question here. And then the next question was from Stephanie Story. Let me just unmute her real quick. Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, thank you again. Willie, can you comment on those clients who have positive reactions on the foods that they rarely eat? What's going on there, and is it necessary to have them avoid them? I mean, does that mean that foods are not a big issue for them?
The way I understand it is that, you know, if they're having a reaction, then there is an antibody response. And you want to decrease all antibody responses as much as you can. You want to bring down, because that's what's creating the inflammation. So it's always curious to me that if they've never really exposed themselves and their body is having a response to that, that there's something in that food protein that is creating that antibody reaction, and therefore I'm actually more careful to make sure that they're not exposed to those foods than one that they eat all the time, because we automatically know that because of the leaky gut, that those proteins crossed over, you know, into the gut lining, creating, you know, the overexposure, creating a lot of antigen-antibody complexes. But when somebody hasn't exposed themselves and they have a reaction, that sends up a red flag to me to actually have them remove those even more.
No.
That's how I read it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, the next question was for Kathy Robinson. Kathy, go ahead. You can ask your question.
Thank you. Is the aflatoxin is in the moderate reaction part of the test, but all the nuts are in the no reaction test section except for peanuts? Should they be off all nuts or just the peanuts?
I always, no matter where it is, even if it's in mild, I always take out pistachios and I always take out peanuts, because from what I've read, I think that those have some of the largest you know, amounts of mold that create the aflatoxin. So, and then I let them have the nuts that are that show up in the green. I let them have those nuts, but again, I'm very, very careful. They rotate them, and we're watching for reaction. And if we're not decreasing the symptoms that they came in for, whether it be skin or gut or some other, whatever their reactions are, if their symptoms are not decreasing, then I remove all the nuts and then bring the nuts back in one at a time.
Thank you.
Douglas, I'm going to read Douglas's question, and then we'll try to unmute him in a minute. Thank you very much. His question was, are there any products available that can help digest gluten, thereby reducing the sensitivity to gluten? Maybe you can just read this question as I have a bad echo. Thanks. Willie?
There are products that are coming out on the market now that are helping to assist. Designs for Health has a product, and I'm trying to think of the name of it right now, and it's escaping me, but it helps to break down the gluten protein. I have had some people that were going to travel to Italy, and I knew they were going to eat gluten, so I gave it to them, and they said it did help. But I believe that if a person's body is reacting to the gluten protein, that they should be off gluten, and that there's so much that can happen to a person's body when you do react and have these reactions, that it's not worth it. But there are products on the market now that will help you to better digest the gluten protein. There's some that will help you with dairy, casein, that sort of thing. So yes, there are products on the market that will do that. And Designs for Health does carry both of those products. But like I said, right now my mind it's escaped me what the names of those are.
Excellent. Is there any other questions out there? If not, we'll wrap this up. Let's give it a minute here. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Willie. Thank you very much. This has been great. We just want to thank you for everything.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Absolutely, and just a reminder, the webinar will be on the website in the Practitioner Services login section. If for whatever reason you can't get it, just contact ALCAT, and we will find a way to email it to you. That won't be a problem. We can also email you a PDF version of the presentation slides, so that won't be a problem either. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us or Willie Victor. Her information is up on the slides now. And looks like another question just popped up. Willie, would you be able to speak with somebody if she has a patient with MS? If you wanted to speak individually?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. Looks like your contact information is right up there. If you want to contact her, her number is 415-388-8101, or you can go to her website, essentialsforhealth.info. So if there's any other questions, just let us know. Otherwise, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your time.
Okay. We will talk soon.
Good night.
Bye.